Good morning, ma'am. I'm Erica May Arpino, and my topic is all about identifying learners with hearing loss. So, how can we spot signs of hearing impairment in a child? So, while hearing impairments are often identified in babies, they may not develop or make themselves known for several years. This means that it's important to keep an eye out for the signs of hearing impairment in the classroom, particularly in young children, as at some point in your career, you should or you could find that you are teaching a child with an undiagnosed with hearing impairment. So here are some of the common signs of hearing impairments that you can look for in young children. Not responding when their name is called. Second, problems with concentration, excessive tardiness, and frustration with work that starts to affect their behavior. Watching your lips intently as you speak, and speaking too loudly or too quietly, and watching others do something before attempting it themselves, becoming increasingly withdrawn from others in the classroom, delayed speech and communication development, mishearing or mispronouncing words, and not being able to hear what's happening if there is any background noise rather, making minimal contributions to classroom discussion, difficulty with reading, linking it to speech. So, mo ni siya guys ang kanang imong mailhan sa bata if na siya sakit nga hearing loss or hearing impairment. And identifying students with hearing problems as students head back to school with renewed energy for the new year. It's very important that parents and teachers need to learn and to recognize when a child's problem with learning are really the result of hearing loss. Childhood hearing loss isn't always easy to recognize, but there are ways that parents and teachers can determine if a child has a hearing loss. Parents of school-age children and younger often wonder what constitutes normal behavior and what serves as a sign, as a child may be having a problem with their hearing. Hearing loss can occur at any age, and it is the most common birth defect in the United States. Though there are no systems in place to recognize that children born with hearing loss, but school-age children who develop hearing loss can go undiagnosed. Childhood hearing loss is sometimes misdiagnosed as ADD or even dismissed because the hearing loss occurs unilaterally only in one ear. So, speech problems. If a child says words incorrectly, has delayed in language and communication, feels more comfortable with gestures, this could be signs that your child is not hearing everything said or not processing sound in a correct way. Note, a lip is not typically associated with hearing loss, and it is a relatively common speech disorder. So let's proceed to inattentive. Parents of young children often complain that they don't answer when they call. So how can you tell the difference between selective hearing or a genuine hearing problem? The key is in consistency. If a child hears and responds to you a majority of the time, then they may have toned you out on the one occasion they did not respond. But if in addition to repeatedly not answering your calls or responding to things you have said, the child often looks confused when asked a question, seems slow to answer, or answers incorrectly, or then ask to have things repeated. You could be seeing the first signs of a problem. And the next is higher volume. If your child has the volume on the television, radio, or computer too high, this could be a sound of hearing loss. Also, a child that speaks in higher volume than most children is also a sign of hearing loss. Children with an illiterate hearing loss are often accused of being loud. This is important because hearing loss in one ear can be harder to spot as the hearing ear sometimes, though it does not compensate for childhood hearing loss. Studies show that an illiterate hearing loss can cause the same delays and cognitive problems as hearing loss in both ears, and also not following directions. So if a child seems confused by directions and brings the wrong item, responds in a way that makes no sense, or consistently asks for things to be repeated he or she could have childhood hearing loss. So children with hearing loss often confuse what is being told to them. And also that means they have difficulty with language. They can also have issues with speech, how they express themselves, or for a clearer understanding on the difference between speech and language. Speech is the verbal expression of language and includes articulation, which is the way of sounds and words are formed. Language is much broader and refers to the entire system of expressing and receiving information in a way that's meaningful. It's understanding and being understood through communication, verbal, nonverbal, and written. So, learning difficulties. Does your child have learning problems in school? Has the teacher complained that he or she is not paying attention? Does the teacher mention the child appears not listen, ignores directions, or seems unable to keep up with the conversation? So, according to the American Speech Language Hearing Association, children who are hard of hearing will find it much more difficult than children who have normal hearing to learn vocabulary, grammar, word order, idiomatic expressions, and other aspects of verbal communication. And the last is social withdrawal. Oftentimes, children with hearing loss avoid social situations like sports, parties, and family events, family gatherings, and these feelings can cause of being overwhelmed by his or her inability to communicate and understand. But sadly, if a child has hearing loss they ask why they avoid the situations, they might not know. To them, their hearing loss is normal. So the child remains unaware that they are not hearing at the same level as everyone else. So in addition to these signs, parents must also learn not to ignore their instinct when it comes to childhood hearing loss, especially if the alarm continues to sound despite recent school testing of your child. School is not the place to have your child's hearing tested, and neither is your pediatrician's office. Pediatricians cannot provide the same level of testing and are not aware of the same hearing issues as a certified audiologist. So, an audiologist has sophisticated equipment and specialized education needed to correctly identify the many different ranges of childhood hearing loss. So, dapat sa mga parents, they have to aware kanang aware sila sa ilang mga anak, aware sila sa kanang unsay nay nangitabo sa ilang anak. Dapat each day, hour, minutes, and unsa pa na dira dapat jud kanang tig ilang taon jud nato ang mga bata. Dapat i-check every time ug unsay problem nila, and yeah, mo na to siya, ma'am. And that's all, and thank you and God bless.